The average person does not read comics. Well, actually, the average person does not read, period, but this time is about comics. Specifically, Superman comics. See, the average person learns about Superman by watching movies or TV shows. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but because of this, the average person has this idea that when it comes to fighting, Superman is just a brute that only knows how to throw a big punch. This, however, could not be farther from the truth. So today, we are going to take a look at the comics, because I wanted to show to you that Superman is a better fighter than you think. For those of you who care, in this video, we will be analyzing Infinite Frontier Superman. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It's comic book nonsense for nerds. Alright, now let's begin. And we're going to start by analyzing a part of Superman that you probably would not expect at first. His brain. Superman's mind is as enhanced as the rest of his body. He's done some pretty crazy things, like reading every single medical book ever written in like 5 minutes, or withstanding being bombarded with a universe worth of information. And how to forget the time he memorized how to rebuild a crazy reality warping device called the Miracle Machine after looking at the thing for a couple of seconds. Okay, so big brain. But what does any of this matter? Well, because this shows that Superman learns and memorizes things incredibly quick. So if someone were to train Superman, it would take him minutes, maybe even seconds, to learn what it would take someone else months or even years. And with that established, now let's go over all the people who have trained him. First, his Earth Dad, who taught him some boxing at an early age. Later in his life, as an adult, he was taught more boxing by Muhammad Ali, and his boxing skills were enhanced even further after he was trained by the superhero Wildcat, who is like the best boxer ever. He's also taken some karate classes and some judo classes. And this is what we could consider his more down-to-earth and less fantastical training. But we're not done with his masters. There's a planet called Warworld. It's ruled by a villain called Mongol. To make a long story short, Mongol kidnaps people from across the universe and makes them fight Roman Colosseum style. Superman was trapped in this planet for a bit, and while there, Superman received some non-specific training from an alien called Krill Ux. Also, Superman has been trained by Mongol himself. He was also trained by this lady called Wyoska, who apparently trained the greatest fighters in the history of Planet Apocalypse. Superman has also trained with the Flash, although their training specifically focused on increasing Superman's speed. And finally, the two best teachers for last, Superman has been trained by both Batman and Wonder Woman. The reason I consider these two the most notable is because Batman is a master of all martial arts on Earth, and there's this superhero called the Karate Kid. He comes from 1000 years into the future, and he's a master of every martial art in the Milky Way galaxy. And Batman has shown to be somewhat competitive against this guy. We are talking a guy who knows all the martial arts of a planet versus a guy who knows all the martial arts of a galaxy. The fact Batman is competitive against this guy at all is ridiculous. As for Wonder Woman, there's this guy called Ares. He's the literal god of war. As a god, Ares knows every martial arts that has ever existed, and this is the guy who has trained Wonder Woman. So Batman and Wonder Woman are both insanely skilled. They both trained Superman, and I would like to remind you that Superman learns really quick. As a matter of fact, Superman has sparred with Wonder Woman many times. It would be really weird if during all those sparring sessions, Superman has never learned anything. In fact, Superman himself has said before that he has learned a lot from both Batman and Wonder Woman. But you know what? I hear you. I know what you're thinking. Who cares what Superman says, or how quick he learns, or how many teachers he's had? Give me feats, or none of that counts. And don't worry, brother. I got you. One of the very first things Superman learned when he was young is that if your opponent has the strength advantage, you can breach that gap with technique. He learned this from his Earth Dad, and he has applied this lesson throughout his entire life. Here are some examples. Superman is fighting the villain Parasite, who is disguised as Lois Lane. They have equal strength, and Superman pins him down with technique. Here's another one. A psychic is forcing Superman to feel the pain of every creature on Earth that is currently experiencing pain at that moment. And while this is happening, Superman is fighting a guy who is as strong as him, so Superman resorts to using technique in order to defeat the bad guy. Next one, Batman gets possessed by a kryptonite ghost and fights Superman. We are talking about Batman here, and now he's emitting kryptonite radiation. Superman then temporarily incapacitates Batman by using pressure points. Next, Superman is fighting enhanced human criminals from the future. They are as strong as him, so Superman beats them with technique. Another one, an alien from a different planet in the future runs a simulation to see what would happen if he fought Superman. This alien is stronger than Superman, so to overcome the gap, Superman uses technique. And last one, and we move on to something else. Superman is fighting a creature called Wraith.
Shadow Legends.
This thing is as strong as Superman, so Superman beats him with technique. Superman wrestles him, chokes him, knees him. It's a wonderful display of skill. Alright, now let's move on to his use of pressure points. Superman has fought using pressure points many times. Depending on the situation, he will even speed blitz you and literally one tap you using pressure points. And look, I know that there is a certain group of people out there who will say that because pressure points in fiction don't work like they do in real life, then using pressure points is not a sign that the character is a skilled fighter. But even if you want to use that really bad argument, the fact Superman knows pressure points is evidence that he can do more than just throwing a big telegraph punch. And proving that is the whole point of this video. Alright, now let's cover some other feats rapid fire. Superman once was fighting the Flash. The Flash is faster, so Superman reads Flash's movement patterns. He predicts where the Flash is going to be next and then flicks him away. He's also copied the fighting style of the Flash and has replicated the boxing and judo of Batman. When he was learning boxing with Muhammad Ali, he had 2 months to learn and he was learning without powers, and during their actual boxing fight, it is stated that in the first round, Superman perfectly replicated Ali's fighting style. In universe, people have complimented his fighting skills. Also, for a short time in his life, Superman thought he was a Batman-esque vigilante called Gangbuster, and during this time, he performed some very acrobatic moves. And he's also moved like this when he's not LARPing as anyone else. And I know what some people are gonna say, this does not prove he's a good fighter, but it does prove that he's agile and athletic. In other words, he has skills. He's not just a brute. For better fighting feats, he once fought and managed to temporarily hold his ground against Zod, Mongol, and other villains while he was blind. Although, he ends up losing this fight. And speaking of Mongol, this one is very impressive. But it requires a lot of context. So one day Mongol lands on Earth and Mongol tells Superman that there is a bad guy called Imperiex, and Imperiex is so powerful that Mongol believes the only way Imperiex can be defeated is if he trains Superman. So they train, and then before they go to fight Imperiex, Superman gets teleported into Valhalla and he spends 1000 years there fighting demons. Just the fact that Superman has 1000 years of combat experience is crazy, but consider at what moment in his life Superman is being sent to Valhalla. He just finished his training with Mongol, all of that information is fresh in his mind, and now he gets to spend 1000 years perfecting everything he learned. When Superman is done in Valhalla and goes back to Earth, a couple of hours have passed on Earth and then he goes and defeats Imperiex. Then a couple of years later, Mongol comes back to Earth to kill Superman. He's just a regular bad guy now. And at this point, Superman has progressed in his skills so much that Mongol cannot land a single hit on Superman. Let's emphasize this. Superman is not stronger than Mongol. He's just much more skilled now. And before anyone starts talking about canon, both Superman's training with Mongol and the 1000 years in Valhalla have been referenced in other stories. Both of these events are canonical. And guess what? I have an even better combat feat. There is this one story where Superman locks himself with 3 evil Batmen in a room that has red sunlight. So Superman doesn't have any powers here, and he defeats the 3 evil Batmen fairly easily. But what's crazy is that before he beats them, he tells them that he's going to be holding back. And last but not least, yeah, I still have more. Superman knows wrestling. In fact, he once ended 2nd place in a wrestling competition. And by the way, this was at a point in his life where he didn't have powers, so he did it with skill. But that's not what matters. What matters is that due to this wrestling knowledge, Superman knows how to perform and how to escape the mighty Full Nelson. You might laugh at this, but I would like to point out that there are other fictional universes where a Full Nelson is a devastating move. Now at this point you might be thinking, wow, that was a lot, but surely he's done by now, right?
Wrong!
Let's now cover Superman's fighting skills when he doesn't have powers. Superman once ran 24 blocks and then fought a group of armed criminals. He almost beats all of them, but one of them hits him with a rock and he would have died, but Batman came in and saved him. Here's a similar scenario. Superman is fighting a group of armed criminals. He almost beats all of them, but one of them pulls out a flamethrower. If Superman's powers hadn't conveniently returned at that moment, he would have died. With these 2 examples, it seems pretty consistent to say that without his powers, Superman is not that great of a fighter, right? Well, here's this alien assassin with a katana. He says he's been an assassin for generations, and he says he has mastered techniques from 7 different planets, and then Superman without powers dodges all of his attacks. And in that same story, Superman then goes on and defeats a giant alien that has superpowers. Here's another one. Superman goes to Earth in the year 3000. The sun is red now, so he loses his powers, and then he goes to a prison and defeats 4 armed security guards from the year 3000. And finally, the craziest one, Superman is in the body of a human, and the bad guy of this story is in the body of Batman. The bad guy thinks he won because he's in the body of someone that knows all martial arts, and then Superman beats him. And that does it for Superman without powers. What we should talk about next then are Kryptonian martial arts. But here's the thing, I have a lot to say about Kryptonian martial arts, but this video is kinda long already, and I'm the one who has to edit this monstrosity, so we can talk about Kryptonian martial arts another time. And finally, let's talk about the fact that Superman lost to Ali. I don't understand why, but to some people, the fact that Superman lost to Ali is proof that he doesn't know how to fight. There are people who will tell you things like, well, if Superman knows how to fight, then why did he lose to Ali? And I don't understand this mentality. Losing fights does not negate your skills as a fighter. But you know what? If for some reason you still want to insist that Superman does not know how to fight just because he lost one boxing match, well, here he is winning a boxing match. He went the 12 rounds and everything. He won this one fair and square. And with that said, it is finally time for the conclusion. So, if Superman has been trained by skilled fighters, and in universe he is complimented for being a skilled fighter, and he has performed things that would require him to be a skilled fighter, my friends, all of this evidence points towards a single conclusion. Superman is a skilled fighter. He knows how to fight. He is not just a brute that only knows how to throw a big telegraph punch. He actually knows how to throw hands. Now, of course, the question then becomes, well, how skilled of a fighter is he? And I'm gonna give you 3 answers. A low ball, an average, and a high ball. The low ball first. Given the amount of times that it is mentioned that Superman knows boxing, it would be really disingenuous to pretend that he doesn't know how to fight. You have to accept that at minimum, he knows how to box. On average, however, I think Infinite Frontier Superman is as skilled as Batman. As for the high ball, considering that Superman has fought beings from all across the multiverse and many different timelines, and considering how fast he learns, Infinite Frontier Superman should be one of the most skilled fighters in DC Comics. And that's it, that's the video. Or so I would like to say, but there is still one final challenge in front of us. It is time for us to be brave and face the dreaded carrot question that has been looming over this video from the start. So, but can it be Goku though? If Superman and Goku did not have powers and they fought each other, who would win? Look, I really don't want to be part of the never-ending war that is the Goku vs Superman debate. I've given you as much information as I could. Whether or not any of this is enough for Superman to beat Goku if they only use martial arts, that is something you are going to have to decide for yourself. And with that said, my work here is done. My friend, as usual, although equally as sincere, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great day and try to be kind to others. I know it's hard, but we should try. So, take care, and remember, as Superman himself would say, there's always a way. Have a good one. Bye!